Hello, how are you? As I turn down the volume, so happy you're here. Thanks for being here. Always appreciate it. Hi, it's Matt, and I'm back for another video, folks. And this is the big one I've been promising, folks. This is the big one, as you probably could tell maybe by the title. I'm not sure how I'm going to title this yet, but yes, folks, this is the story about meeting my second Beatle. I will link my video, which I did a while back, about meeting Ringo Starr back in 1992 on his Time Takes Time tour. And I will definitely put a link to that video if you've missed it and never got to see, I had the opportunity to see that one. But this is the big one. This is the one I've been holding on to for 4 years since I've been in the Beatles and vinyl community. This one is about my meeting with Paul McCartney back in 1990. Wow. A lifetime ago. It's like half my life ago now, I'm almost 60 years old. But back, oh my goodness, when I was 29 years old, I just turned 29 years old, I had the very, very great privilege and luck of meeting and spending about 10 or 12 minutes with Paul McCartney, hanging out with him and talking and chatting, and I'm going to tell you all about it, folks. So hang on to your hats, sit back, have a nice beverage, and relax. I'm going to tell you the entire story. And I'm going to be putting this as a special edition of my Matt Mangles McCartney series, as you all know. So I will be calling it that. So technically, we're covering this album. We're covering Tripping the Live Fantastic, the big triple disc set here. And then I also have Tripping the Live Fantastic Highlights, which has all my trials on it, which you can't get on this one, and so it's nice to have both. And my highlights one is still sealed. Is that worth anything? I don't know, but I have highlights still sealed from 1990, and I have my 3-disc set right here from that live Paul McCartney World Tour, which started in late 1989 and ran right through 1990, and I'm going to tell you all about it. But first, folks, let's go back. So I'm a young guy at the time with a young family. My first son was born in 1986. Now we're into Flowers in the Dirt, came out in 89. And my wife, at the end of that year, is expecting our first child. And as I told you in my last Matt Mangles McCartney, that I had gotten tickets to see Paul at the Worcester Centrum on February 8th and February 9th of 1990 in Worcester, Massachusetts. And folks, it was a life-changing experience to have the opportunity to see Paul for the first time ever. I was a little bit too young to get tickets, as I told you, back on the 76 Wings Over America tour. When he came back on that 89 and 90 World Tour, I was ready. And folks, I have to tell you another quick story. It's kind of funny because my wife was also due, Mrs. Street was due for my second child, in February of 1990. So I was like this, folks, hoping that something wouldn't happen on February 8th or February 9th, which took me away from seeing Paul. I know it's like one of those funny things, like, your second child's coming, but first time you're going to see Paul. Everything's happening around the same time. It was very chaotic, folks, but we got through it. It's funny because when I left with my good friend Larry, may he rest in peace, but Larry was my Beatles buddy. He was going to the shows with me, and it's funny, but we were leaving for that first show on February 8th to go see Paul up at in Worcester. I said to my wife, "Now, are you okay? You feeling okay? Is everything all right?" Because back in those days, folks, I don't even think I had a pager. I might have had a pager. No, I don't think I did. No cell phones, no pager on me at the time. So there really was no way for, if I left that house, got in that car and drove away, for my wife to get a hold of me if, God forbid, the water broke or something and my son was coming. What are you going to do? It was weird in those days. Like, once you left, that was it. So it was like, okay, you're all set now. I'm getting in the car. We're opening the door. Okay, shutting the door. We're going up to Worcester to see Paul. You're all set? It was one of those things. But thankfully, by the grace of God, everything worked out wonderful. I saw Paul both February 8th and 9th, and my son was born February 20th. So there you go, it worked out. But anyway, folks, those two first shows with Paul were life-changing, as I said. The first one on February 8th, we were in the second row, pretty much center, or kind of a little bit towards Paul's piano that came out of the stage and rose and spun around for Fool on the Hill. So he was right there. I mean, the guy was right in front of me. It was just a very emotional moment, especially when he got to Let It Be. By the time he got to that song, I had tears in my eyes. It was just emotionally, it hit me. It was just unbelievable. Great show, great show. And the second night, we were a little further back. We were up in the balcony, still fairly close, but it was fabulous. And I'll never forget those first 2 nights seeing Paul, 1990, February. But let's get back to the main story, or the meat of the story. Oh, and also on that night, I bought my Paul McCartney sweatshirt. Here it is, my original. As you can see, it has all the dates on the back from the World Tour, 89 and 90. And there you go. And I'm not sure if, yeah, Worcester's on there. And then he went to Lexington, Kentucky, Cincinnati, Indianapolis, Atlanta, and then Tokyo on that leg, which started in Oslo and Stockholm. Remember all that. So anyway, folks, if you can get a gander at that, this is my original sweatshirt. It's beat up. It's a little dirty, you know, clean but dirty, you know what I mean? Kind of the white is faded, but there it is. And I have a t-shirt I bought back there, which I've never worn. So that's 30 plus years old, and I just keep it pristine. Thought I'd show you that. Okay, and as you remember for the shows, you got the free program. You remember this? Great stuff. Show you that quick. Lots of good stuff in this little free program, which I thought was a nice, classy touch by Paul and his camp. You know, a lot of good stuff in here. Free of charge. You didn't have to buy the main one, but of course I did buy the main one, and here it is. It's a beautiful program. I'm going to show you a little bit of that too. Don't worry, I'm getting to the meeting Paul stuff, but I want to show you some stuff here. I thought you'd get a kick out of seeing. Great tour program. Funny how they have some press to play pictures in the program. So I'm here. I'm just going to show you it, folks, because you got to see it. It's just too good to pass up. This first program from that 89-90 World Tour. And I got this up in Worcester that night. It's a centerpiece. The whole band. Very large size, too. Great pictures of Paul there and Linda with his Les Paul. This one's huge. You get these pictures here live, but then you got a big fold out. It doesn't even do it justice, folks, but you see Paul there in the center, and it's just a fabulous fold out. Again, 1990. There's the band members, all the guys. We're getting there, folks. Paul. Big book. Yeah, almost there. Last page. Tour credits over here. Picture Paul holding that bass. And then I like this little fold out here. As you open the fold out, there it is. So this is a great tour book, memento from that tour, folks, and I'll always cherish it. So anyway, the February shows happen. I'm all excited. I bought my tour gear. I've got my t-shirt. I got my sweatshirt. I'm just so happy, excited that I finally get to see Paul after all those years. And then we get word later on as the tour progressed that he was going to be coming back to our area in the Northeast United States, that he was going to be playing 2 big shows at then Foxborough Stadium, it was called, in Foxborough, Massachusetts. At that time, it was the home of the Patriots. They don't play there anymore. Obviously, it was been long torn down, and now they play at Gillette Stadium. But at the time, Foxborough Stadium held about 60,000 people. Paul was scheduled to come back on July 24th, have a night off on July 25th, and then play again on July 26th. It was the next to last stop on the entire Paul McCartney World Tour, because his next stop was Soldiers Field after Foxborough, and that was the last date. The tour was over, okay, until he came around again 3 or so years later with the Off the Ground New World Tour. So anyway, at that time, I worked for a security and public safety organization doing security and stuff like that, and we were contracted out to do security at Foxborough Stadium. Luckily enough, we did details there, security details, and provided protection and stuff for different things going on, whether it be games or other events at the stadium. So my supervisor knew that I was a big fan of Paul McCartney and the Beatles. Everyone knows when you're a Beatles fanatic that, oh, that's the guy, he's the Beatles nut. So he said he was going to do his best to try to get me on a detail that could get me as close to Paul as possible. And I was ecstatic, folks. Now, I had tickets to both shows. I had tickets for the July 24th show with my friend Larry again, just 2 tickets, pretty good seats, you know, about 50-yard line back. And then I had a little better seats on July 26th with my entire family. I had 6 tickets for the 26th for myself, Mrs. Street, my mom and dad, who were both, you know, here at the time and were young enough to go to something like that, and my brother and a girl he was with. So there was 6 of us all together for that night. Really looking forward to it again. Couldn't wait. Had the tickets from months prior and was very excited about it. But when I got word from my supervisor that he was going to try to help me get as close to Paul as possible on some type of security detail for the event, well, I was ecstatic, naturally. I was very, very excited about it. So here's the deal. Here's what happened. On that middle night, July 25th, 1990, Paul was scheduled to come back to the stadium, low-key. There was no show that night. And Richard Lester and his crew, I'm not sure if Richard Lester was there, were going to be filming some close-ups and some tight shots for the Get Back film, which was going to be coming out after the tour. You know, that famous live tour film of the Paul McCartney World Tour. Great, great film, by the way. So they were going to be back. It's almost near the end of the tour, and they probably determined they needed some really good tight shots or some close-ups of Paul and the band or whatever. So that was scheduled for that night, July 25th. Now, on the 24th, 1,000 lucky fans were given these little blue tickets, special tickets, that if they wanted to come back for a special showing or special participation, as it were, in this special Paul McCartney filming session, then only 1,000 were given out, and they were only going to allow 1,000 people in to be right at the front of the stage to have some audience participation there while Paul and the band did their thing. So that was done. So 1,000 fans showed up that night. Well, they wanted some type of security for that because even though it was only 1,000 and not 60,000 like the night before and what was going to be coming the night after, they still wanted some type of security there. So my supervisor, bless his soul, said to me, listen, Matt, I'm going to get you on one of the details for that middle night so that it's not really a show that night, but we can get you there so you can be part of the festivities, so to speak. And I'm like, whatever you want, thank you so much. I couldn't thank him enough. Anyway, so he says to me, the night of the 25th, Paul and his helicopter are going to be landing at a helipad about several hundred yards behind Foxborough Stadium. There's that little helipad there. He says the helicopter is going to be landing. You're going to take one of our security vehicles. You're going to go back to that fenced-in area. All right? They're going to let you in, and you're going to wait there. When the helicopter lands and Paul and his entourage get out, a limousine is going to back right up to the helicopter. Paul and his entourage are going to jump in that helicopter, and then you're going to lead the procession, basically an escort the procession up the several hundred yards up the hill towards the back of Foxborough Stadium, and you're going to get him into the backstage area safely, and then you'll be all set. He says, that's all I can guarantee you. I can't do any more for you, but at least you'll be there. You'll see Paul come in on the and I was happy with that, folks. I was like, oh my goodness, thank you so much. I appreciate it. So, the night of the 25th. First of all, the night of the 24th was a great show. Went with my friend Larry. The band was wearing a little different stage outfits that night. Instead of the dark colored jackets, they were all wearing those lighter tannish white jackets. Great show, fabulous show. Unbelievable. So I'll go with that for now. It just was great. So that next night, I got there, had my stuff with me, and I made sure I brought a camera. Now, back in those days, we didn't have phone cameras, folks, so I had my old 35 millimeter camera, and I had some t-shirts. I got some gifts for Paul, and just in case, I could give them to somebody like Jeff Baker or somebody or a security guy to give to Paul. So I had some really nice shirts. I had some police-related shirts. I had some wildlife preservation type shirts, support of animal rights and stuff like that. I had a few of those, and different sizes for Linda or for Paul or for whoever. I had a bunch of them. And so I brought them. And I was wearing my security uniform, as you'll see in the picture I show you after I met Paul. I had to wear the little security hat and the security uniform and all that stuff with the little security badge and everything. But that was fine, I didn't care about that. So anyway, I go down to the helipad. And as I'm waiting there, it was going to be a while until Paul's helicopter got there. One of his personal security people struck up a conversation with me. He saw me standing by there with the car, and I had some lights on the car, to help with the escort and whatnot. And he came over to me and started conversing with me. Hey, how you doing? And thanks for doing this. We appreciate it and all that. And so I got a little conversation with him, and I'm pretty personable, so I was friendly with him. And I said, hey, listen, if you don't mind, I've got some nice shirts here for Paul and his family. Maybe Linda would like. I says, is there any way if I give them to you, you could give them to Paul and his family? Now, first of all, I was very fortunate that this security guy that Paul had hired as part of the security company he worked with or whatever, even came over and spoke to me. But the fact that he said to me, tell you what, he must have liked me or something. He said, if I can, when we get up to the backstage area, I'll see if I can let you give them to him yourself. Well, I'm like bowled over by this. What? You're going to let me give them to him myself? Are you kidding me? But I was just so thankful and gracious to the man, like, oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. That would be wonderful. Okay, so the helicopter comes in, circles around a few times, and there were fans around. Even though the helipad was down, it was fenced in, and there was only supposed to be 1,000 people there that night. There were fans around that helipad, and you could see why they did want security that night, because it wasn't just like a ghost town. Beatles and Paul's fans were around. They were yelling, they were screaming, they were waving, they were around. And so Paul definitely needed some security that night and some protection. So the helicopter circles and it lands. Limousine backs into the fenced-in area of the helipad, and Paul and Linda, and I'm not sure who the other people were. I think their son James at the time was only like 12 or 13. I remember seeing him, and there might have been a couple of other people, I'm sure Jeff Baker, whoever, get out of this nice executive-style helicopter and all jump into this one limousine, and then sure enough, we're off to the races. Okay, we have the fences opened, we pull out of the helipad area, I put my lights on, and we start driving up towards the back of the Foxborough Stadium. And I'm just so happy at that point that I got to see Paul. He was only, 20, 30 yards from me, getting into this limo out of the helicopter. I thought I was in heaven right there. So we get up to the backstage area, and people are yelling and screaming and waving at the limousine. Of course, Paul must have been waving out at them like he normally does. We get up to the backstage area. They slide the big fence to the backstage area is all fenced in behind the stadium with tents and internal parking and trailers and, the whole shebang. So they slide the big gate open, and they, the security people, Paul's people, waved me right in, and other security people that worked with me on the security team waved the big the entourage in. My car, Paul's car, and I think there was a car behind the limousine, all come flying in, and the gate gets closed right behind, and people are yelling and screaming, and Paul, and the whole thing. Imagine, it was pandemonium, it was chaos. But we got him in there safely, and nobody was hurt, and everybody was happy, I think. So that was great. We get inside, and I wanted to stay cool, so the limo went further into a little more of an inner sanctum. I waited in the outer parking area, secure area, and I just waited. I was just very patient, folks. I didn't want to blow things. I didn't want to screw things up. I just waited. I had my little camera out. I had my shirts for Paul and his family ready to go, just in case. And sure enough, a few minutes later, the guy comes over. He walks to me, this security guy who I had been friendly with back at the helipad, and he comes up to me and goes, hey, come with me. Folks, I was ecstatic. I had the camera ready. I'm ready. Got my little security hat on, and I'm just, yes, sir, whatever you want. And I just follow this gentleman into the inner sanctum. Another gate I go through, and there's all the trailers lined up along the back. There's some big tents, and you can tell it's like where, all the That's where they hang out. That's where the food is. That's where the drinks are. That's where the rugs and the carpets are to make it very homey and comfy. And there's the trailers where everybody gets dressed. They're all mobile trailers at the back of a big stadium like that. And he says, wait here a minute. Just wait here a minute. He's in with his team talking about the film shoot tonight. But in a few minutes, I'll see if I can get you to give him the T-shirts and stuff. I said, oh, thank you so much. So I'm like a statue. I'm just where he told me to stay. I just planted myself. Yes, sir. I'm right here. I just stood there quietly, kept my cool, very professional. I didn't want to look like a fanboy or, like. So I was very calm and cool about it. And a few minutes later, sure enough, Paul was done with his meeting, and he waves to me to come further and follow him even further into the inner sanctum. Oh my goodness. So we walk further. We go under a tent and come out the other side of a tent, and now we're on the other side of the trailers and the other side of the tent. And as I'm walking with him about 4 yards ahead of me, I'm coming through, and there I see him, and you can't mistake him. There's Paul, like 20 yards away from me as I come out from under this tent. And there he is, 20 yards away. He's just standing there. He's got some look like black casual sneakers on, black jeans, and he had his Nebworth t-shirt tucked into his jeans. He's wearing a Nebworth shirt. I guess a few weeks further, they had played that big Nebworth show, and he had that t-shirt on. You'll see it in the picture. So I'm like ecstatic and excited and walking towards him, and I go, oh my goodness, this is the moment of truth. This is going to happen. I'm going to meet Paul McCartney. But folks, I have to give myself a little credit. I was very calm and cool about it. I didn't want to, I didn't want to freak him out or scare him, so I was very, myself, how you would know me to be myself. As I walked towards him, I go, good evening, Paul. How you doing? Great to meet you. And we shook hands. He said, hello, how are you doing? He says, I really appreciate what you did tonight for us. How are you? As we shook hands, I go, I'm doing very well. And then right away, after we were done shaking hands, he stood back. He goes, I used to have a hat like that. And you'll see my little security hat in the picture. It's one of those little, round, looks like a little Boy Scout hat, so to speak, from the old days. And sure enough, that's what he said. He said, when I was in the Boy Scouts back in Great Britain, I don't remember his exact wording, that when he was in scouting, and I guess he was, we used to have a little green hat like that. Mine's blue in the picture, but his was green, I guess. And I go, really? And so, I didn't think of it till later, folks, and other people told me I should have done this, and I kick myself now for not doing it. But if I had this presence of mind, which I didn't, because he's right there talking to me, I should have said, Paul, you want this one? I should have given it to him. But I didn't think of it at the time. But he wouldn't want my grubby, sweaty hat anyway. But it was just funny how he pointed right out my hat and said, I used to have a hat like that when I was in the scouting in the UK years ago as a boy. So I got a kick out of that. And he was just standing there casually talking. That's what really struck me, is he didn't have a big entourage around him. There was one of his security people, Jeff Baker, his old PR guy, might have been there. And that was it. He was just standing there with his hands in his pocket. He just looked like some guy standing there like, hey, shooting the breeze, hey, getting ready to do the video shoot later or so in the evening. And very low key. So it was just me and maybe two other people and Paul, like four or five people standing there. And it was just so great because we gave our pleasantries. He commented on my hat. He then asked me, are you going to the show tomorrow night? And I said, oh, I went last night. He goes, oh, you did? I said, yeah, I went with a friend. I said, but I'm going tomorrow night, Paul, with my entire family. I said, my mom and dad are coming, and my wife and I, my brother and another girl. And he seemed very struck that I wasn't just some guy who was trying to get a free handshake or a free moment with him that didn't really care about him or his career or his music. When I told him I was going to both shows, and then I mentioned I had been to the Worcester shows earlier in the year and they were so great and wonderful, this is the fourth time I'll be seeing you, he seemed very enamored with that I wasn't just some guy coming in to, oh yeah, I saw Paul McCartney, that I was a real fan. And at one point I did mention Flowers in the Dirt to him, and I did say, Paul, I really love Flowers in the Dirt. I think it's a fabulous album. It's fantastic. One of your best. And he seemed very, very taken with that like, like, wow, you like that? You like the album? Like, this guy isn't just some security guy who's here to, wave, say he waved at Paul McCartney and doesn't really care. This guy owns my records. This guy comes to my shows. And he seemed very pleased with that. And he seemed very pleased that I was a real fan, along with somebody who had helped him. And he did thank me for that, for being helpful with the security detail and getting them up to the backstage area. So asked about my job a little bit and my family, and I told him, I was married with 2 little boys at home, and he seemed very, interesting. Paul, very gregarious. He makes you feel welcome. He makes you feel comfortable. And he did that for me and made me feel like he was truly interested in my life and what I was doing and how I was doing. And I really appreciated that from him. And it just was a really great moment with him. And then at one point I gave him the t-shirts and he took them and was very gracious about taking the t-shirts. And so at that point, he said, "Would you like an autograph?" And he motioned to somebody, I don't remember who, folks, but they got an 8x10, and here it is. And he signed this with a Sharpie for me. And there's his autograph on the white border on the side. And you can see as the Sharpie goes right into the black, too. It's going to be hard for you to see that. But the big loop on the Y on McCartney goes right into the black, almost near where his head is. But there it is. There's the autograph. Great picture of him from earlier in the tour. Promo pic with the autograph. Cherished piece of memorabilia of mine that I will cherish forever until I'm gone and pass on my children. And now the big reveal, folks. As you can see, here is the picture of me and Paul. As you can see, he's holding some of the t-shirts I handed him. He's wearing his Nebworth shirt. I've got my little security uniform on, my little security hat he commented on, and standing there with him, very young Matt Street, half my life ago, folks. I'm 60, and that's a 29-year-old there with Paul. I'll try to get a nice close-up of Paul there for you. He looks great there. I'm doing the best I can, folks. But there we are, Paul and Matt Street, together all those years ago. That's it, folks. I met Paul. I spent time with him, about 12 minutes. We then said our goodbyes. He thanked me again for my help with the security detail and getting him to the backstage area. That told me to, like pleasantries, like take care of yourself, enjoy the show tomorrow night, that kind of stuff. Folks, it's a memory and a moment in my life. It was only 10 or 12 minutes, but it's 10 or 12 minutes I will remember vividly till the day I die. And it's, there's many highlights in my life with meeting my wonderful, beautiful wife, having my children, now having my grandchildren, my children's marriages to my 2 beautiful daughter-in-laws. Beautiful moments throughout my entire life, but that is a moment in time. Meeting Ringo, which I will link to this, and meeting Paul, which will forever stay with me as a Beatles fan, because I know it will never happen again. I know it was just pure luck that it happened to me. I just was very lucky, folks. Very lucky, and in a position where luck worked in my favor. So I hope I got everything out that I wanted to share with you. This is my edition of Matt Mangels McCartney for the Tripping the Live Fantastic, I guess, 1990, all those years ago. I hope you enjoyed it, folks. If you have any questions, just ask me. If I missed something, I'll try to answer it for you. And take care. Love you all. Bless you all. Bye-bye.